In the following years, in Oregon and Washington and later in BC, from mountaintops and then from airplanes, as I came into Portland, Seattle, or Vancouver, I watched the clear cut spread and spread, and realized that that boyhood world had vanished pretty much completely. At college, I assumed, like most good Christian farm boys, I was going to be a foreign missionary. It was really the only way to serve God that I knew of. But I kept being drawn to literature and philosophy and theology, and looking back, I see that one thread linked everything I studied. What does it mean that we are creatures? What is the place of creation in all of this? I was trying to put together that world that had nourished me so richly as I wandered through those forests, and that world that I had myself been so instrumental in helping destroy. How do I make sense of this? Because in the Christianity of my childhood, salvation meant one thing. It meant escape from hell. I remember a speaker who came to a little church that met in the rural, in the room in the building where I went to school, and he had an object lesson one night. It was an evangelistic meeting. This is the kind of evangelistic understanding that I think we need to separate from the word evangelical. And his object lesson was to pass up and down. He lit a plate of sulfur and passed it up and down the island, the aisles, and said, "Don't touch that, but smell it, because that's what hell's like. That's what's going to happen if you don't." And the incident underlines the overwhelming picture I had then of what salvation was. That all of the earth, myself included, was under the threat of imminent fiery destruction. What counted was the only really important spiritual issue. We're asking whether if this global warming is a spiritual issue. The only important spiritual issue that I understood as a boy was how to save my spirit, my soul from hell. The good news of the gospel was that there was a way of escape from the fiery death that was soon to overtake all creation. It was good news for some of us. It was bad news for everything else, especially things like the trees, which really didn't have a future and didn't have a chance because they didn't have a soul. Well, a good part of my education has been concerned with broadening that understanding of redemption, what salvation is, and what the gospel is. Of trying to communicate that fuller view, trying to spell out what it means, what salvation means for the created world. And yet it's an uphill struggle. In Seattle a few years ago, I gave a lecture which I suggested that creation had a part in God's ultimate purpose. And I got a letter from a person who was in the audience, turned out to be a pastor. Said, "Christ's redemption is always in purchasing the chosen or elect from their trespasses. The redemption of the earth from its groaning will be its vaporization and replacement. Its value is in providing our habitation. It's a variable. We are the constant with God. Praise the Lord that His promise is made so clear to those who want to hear." Well, so is climate change and environmental decline a spiritual and moral issue? Yes, clearly. But we didn't know that for most of our history. Now that we do know it, what do we do? And especially, how do we communicate it? Speaking again as an evangelical Christian, but I still am happy to wear that label. How do we communicate that to other Christians? That's what I've been trying to figure out for the last 50 years since I left that farm in Oregon. I've come to recognize that the Christian gospel is about much more than saving our souls from hell. If we are to effectively engage the church and society, which is what we're going to talk about this afternoon, we must show that this issue is at the heart of the Christian message. It's at the heart of what salvation means. It's at the heart of the evangel, the good news, not a peripheral add-on.